And we are live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the stream. I hope that you're all doing well, that you had a very nice week. My week has been very good so far, and I'm very happy to have you with us tonight again for a new interview with a member of the European Parliament. This time with a different, let's say, way of doing things. So those of you who have been with me for the French interviews are familiar with this other format, but I think it's the first time I do it in English, so I will walk you through it. So what we're going to do tonight is, instead of talking with the MEP, so tonight, as you can see on screen, Danuta Hübner, we will not talk about what she does in Parliament, what are her focus and political career, that sort of stuff. Instead, we're going to focus on one specific topic, the Conference on the Future of Europe. So a big consultation process, and we're going to dig into that and try to understand what it is, what aim it does, what can we expect from it, the kind of debates that happen in it and around it, that sort of thing. But that's going to be only one topic for the evening, so we're not going to talk about anything else than that. So for tonight, we will discuss with a Polish MEP, Danuta Hübner. So she's from the European People's Party, so the EPP, that's the right side of European politics. She's 73 years old. She has been an MEP since 2009, and before that, she was the first ever Polish commissioner. Actually, she was the first two Polish commissioner. So since Poland joined the EU in 2004, so it's pretty safe to say that she knows her way around the EU pretty well. She's a member in the Parliament of the Committee on International Trade, the Committee on Economic and Monetary Affairs, and a substitute in the Committee on Constitutional Affairs and the Subcommittee on Tax Matters. But as always, before I remind the house rules, as always, Mrs. Hübner will stay with us for about an hour. After that, she will go enjoy the rest of her evening, and we'll stay together to discuss for another half an hour to debrief the interview, discuss what you thought about it, maybe provide a few additional explanations if needed, that sort of thing. So like I mentioned, we're going to talk tonight about the Conference on the Future of Europe. It's a big, never seen before kind of consultation process that is currently taking place all over Europe and online. And the goal of it is to invite people to discuss, to propose ideas and debate about what Europe should be and should do in the future. So this conference will last until spring 2022, so beginning of next year. After that, there will be concrete recommendations that will be made to the EU institutions, which will need to follow them up. And that's why we're having Mrs. Hübner tonight with us tonight, because she's actually a delegate of the EPP, of the European Parliament. So she represents the European Parliament in this consultation process that involves citizens, academics, and all the likes. So as usual, I have prepared my own question for Mrs. Hübner, and I collected questions from people on Reddit, on Discord, etc., etc. And as always, you can ask your own question via the chat. I will keep an eye on it, and I will pick among your suggestions. So feel free to participate and react, but don't spam, stay civil, and stay on topic. Reminder, we're only talking about the Conference on Future of Europe, not the rest. However, very interesting it would be, we'll focus for 1 hour on that one topic. So the goal of this kind of interview is for you to understand one topic that is important, topical in the European Union, and here that involves citizens. So I thought that would be quite interesting to cover that in detail. So without further ado, I suggest that we can dig into this. So good evening and welcome to you, Mrs. Hübner. Thank you again for accepting to do this interview on the channel and come to talk to our audience about the Conference on the Future of Europe. So you heard me explain it already a bit to our viewers. The goal of tonight is to understand better what is this conference, what are the objectives, what are the debates around it, and given your role as a delegate into this conference, I thought that you would be perfect to tell us all about it tonight. So thank you again for being with us. Perhaps to start a bit our conversation, what I would suggest would be for you to introduce yourself to the audience, talk maybe a bit about how you got into European politics, and then became commissioner, then became an MP, and then we will start a conversation about the conference itself.
Okay, well, welcome also everybody. And you know, my secret is that I'm not a politician. I never thought that I could be a politician, and I never had this feeling that I am a politician, maybe because I am just avoiding to be a politician who is really committed to a party, which I'm not. I'm not a member. You don't have to be a member of the party to be a member of a political group in the European Parliament. I just come from Poland, from the list of civic platform, and that's why I'm linked with this party and with this political group. But I always thought that there are things to do, and I was just through my life many times in the right moment, in the right place when there was something to do. And for example, I negotiated Polish accession to OECD because I was deputy minister at the time and there was nobody who would do it. So I said, I will do it. So I'm just this type of a quasi-politician who is just doing things, especially when things are important, or at least for me. So that's how there was a certain moment when I decided to help the colleagues, to help Polish government to prepare Poland to the accession to European Union. So I was Minister for Europe. I was sort of organizing, supervising the whole process of negotiation and preparing for accession. There was a lot of things to do also at home, as you can imagine. And then I was kind of natural candidate to become the commissioner, first on trade and then on the regional policy. And then the prime minister at that time, Donald Tusk, was later the president of the European Council. He just asked me whether I want to go from the lists to the elections, European elections. And that was in 2009, and then 2014 and 2019. And that's how I am here doing things, both, I think, for my home country, which requires, I think, also some support. But first of all, for Europe, I'm really committed European in the sense that I see Europe as really our house, our home, and also our future. And that's why I think it's important that we care about Europe. And I'm just, as I understand, caring about Europe, that's what I'm doing actually now. And Europe is, of course, its citizens, first of all.
All right. Well, tonight we're going to talk about the conference on the future of Europe. And actually, I described already a bit the process in my introduction. I was looking before the interview a bit at the structure, and it seemed when you look at it from someone who is not used to the process and how the EU works, it seemed like quite complicated in terms of organization, because we have a joint presidency, we have executive boards, we have citizens panel, a plenary. So perhaps could you explain a bit how all this works together ultimately? How is it structured?
Yeah, so but first of all, I think, as you also use this word public consultation, we have to remember that this is something that European Union is doing for the first time in its life, in its history, which is really the biggest ever public consultation, because we do a lot of public consultation for individual legal acts or proposals, and individually working with stakeholders, as we say, but such a in a way, global, pan-European process of bringing people into the process within which we discuss the future of Europe. That's what we are doing for the first time. And I keep my fingers crossed, but of course, it can go both ways. It can be a big success in the sense it will help us to shape the future of Europe on the basis of what we citizen people on our continent think about the future. Or it can be also that we will not finally have such a successful and happy end with a lot of new ideas, and with also ideas that would be then taken by European institutions and converted into the European legislation or some political frameworks that would be important for those who came with ideas, and also for the future of Europe. So we have to remember that we are in this process for the first time, and it's up to us to decide and to spare no efforts to make it really a good, happy end, process with happy end, or successful process of negotiations and public and consultations. And why it is complex? Well, it is and it is not, because, I mean, obviously, if you want to have not only people from European institutions, which is normally that this Brussels bubble is just negotiating, consulting, and talking to each other, and that's relatively easy and maybe not complicated, because we have already channels on, and there is a whole procedure when we negotiate, discuss, and come to the final conclusion. But if we want to sort of make this process a broader one, if we want also to invite national parliaments, for example, which we did, national governments, representatives of other European institutions than Parliament, the Commission, the Council, also the Committee of the Regional, Economic and Social Committee. If we want, and this is the biggest challenge, if we want to have in this process of dialogue, pan-European dialogue, also citizens, also civil organizations, also social representatives. There are different forms of this representation in individual member states. So if we get us all together, it must be complex. Somebody has to organize it. Somebody has to make decisions on how we organize the process and how each of those invited through different procedures, again, invited to this dialogue can really participate and can feel that has impact. That, of course, requires some sort of, I hate to say bureaucracy or administration, structure. Organization, structure, simply, yes, which is this executive board, where again, you have to have representatives coming from all those different people representing Europe. And then, of course, you have to organize your discussion. And here I think it is important to remember that we started actually the whole discussion with establishing, it was open in April, establishing this multilingual platform. I think there are 24 languages now, there is this interpretation. And where everybody can just knock there and click and put ideas or organize a discussion to which he or she is inviting other people. So this platform, where we have today, I think, around 31,000 participants, which some people says, wow, a lot, but I think it's really very little. And I think we should do everything to increase the interest in just being on this platform and participating in discussion and meeting other people from different places in Europe, different countries, different cities, different schools, universities. That's a huge opportunity. We never had such a big digital platform to have a discussion on among all of those who want. The problem is they have to want, right? So it's that's a big challenge as well. But and then we have also the organization includes the structures include also specially organized panels, citizens panels. There are 4 citizens panels. There are 200, I think, people in every panel, and those people we were thinking, and I hope that was finally the best option what we chose. Those people in panels, there's more than 800 people probably altogether. They are selected randomly by specialized firm that is just bringing into these panels people who are really representative of European citizens. And so you have all the factors which decide on your specificity as citizen that are taken into account. And this is this way. But then for the national parliaments to participate, we just asked national parliaments to nominate the representatives. And then governments also decided who from governments will be representing in this plenary, in this whole, the biggest sort of forum of this conference, who will be representing the governments. And that's why just to organize all that and then to continue organizing the whole process, you need some administration. And there are, of course, costs. There are costs as well. And but yes, that's there was, I think, the most important for us. This is the most important for us. I mean, people who care about Europe. Let's stick to this. It is important that we really just have an opportunity to listen to others, to listen to each other, and to allow everybody basically bring into the debate whatever is important for anybody. There are some proposals that we should discuss climate, that we should discuss rule of law and many other things. But in principle, whatever you want to discuss, you can put it on this multilingual platform, or you can bring it to the panels in the discussion. And then the problem is not to have filters, not to lose things that people present, and to finally at the end reach a kind of conclusion that would be also a list of things to do. That's my hope, that there will be a list of things to do.
And so I understand that, so like you mentioned, since there needs to be a balance between a lot of different stakeholders, institutions, and also the citizens, so that's why we have this whole structure. But so like I mentioned, you are involved in this conference as a delegate of the EPP and the European Parliament, and what's your role in the conference? Are you there to in the listening mode, like to listen what the citizens are saying? Are you there to exchange with them, to debate, telling them maybe this is really can be done, this cannot be done? Where do you fit in this?
No, this is, well, you put your finger on many things at the same time. I think we also have to remember that each of us, I would say politician, is depending on how you feel, but I think that is obliged in this conference to also have his or her own discussions, own dialogues. I have a lot of meetings with Polish schools, with university students. I also had some meetings with the local authorities, or also at the level of regions. We do it all remotely so far, but each of us, I think, is also sort of multiplying this, the whole objective to have a dialogue by his or her own action. And I must say, I like most those discussions through Zoom, or that I had so many of them also at night with mostly young people, and talking about everything that is important for them, or that they don't understand, or that I don't understand. So on equal footing, basically, just sharing, and this is something which I hope that each of us who are somehow nominated by parties, by institutions, or selected by to panels, that each of us is such a multiplier in his or her community, and is just sort of making this decision just go beyond those structures, organized structures of the conference. But formally, I mean, for example, when I am because we have 108, I think, if I remember correctly, members of European Parliament who belong to this plenary community, so this biggest representative of the whole conference. And I am there, so when we had the first plenary, because there are not many plenaries, so when we had the first plenary, I think it was 19th of June, I just spoke about what I think is important for the conference, and how this dialogue just really should be organized, and how we should care about also and honor those who come from the citizens, community of European citizens to this conference to have a dialogue with us, and some general things. But then we will have next plenary, I think next Saturday, next week. Yeah. But in the meantime, we have also discussions of those who are representing my political group in the plenary. So we have separate discussions. We have also meetings like we had, I think yesterday, was it, or 2 days ago, also the meeting of all the European Parliament representatives to the plenary. So we are also sharing within the Parliament and within political group also our views on many things, and we are complaining that, for example, national parliaments are not really sufficiently strongly involved. We are complaining also, many of us, that we should do really more to communicate the conference, because we think that it deserves this opportunity to have a debate about Europe. It just deserves having more participants, so that we should do more in terms of communicating. We are complaining about national media, who are really not interested so far strongly, I think, strongly enough in the conference. So we are having discussions on many issues which are important for us. Some of colleagues just They are trying to understand that we having in Europe the parliamentary democracy or representative democracy where people are represented by those who are elected every 5 years during the European elections, that here we have some sort of direct democracy or deliberative or democracy, participatory democracy, whatever name you use. So how to combine both? And I always thought and still think that we as representative democracy, where you have parliaments who represent people and people elect the members of parliament, that this democracy, can benefit from also this direct democracy, where people participate in decision making or where people contribute also to decisions which are being made. So I think that it's not either or, that if you have parliamentary democracy, you cannot have like citizens or this participatory. I think the opposite, that both have to strengthen each other, and that's what this conference is also doing. But not everybody is thinking like this, and this.
That's part of democracy. It's a debate that needs to happen. And actually, I mean, I'm looking at the chat right now, and there's already a few questions. You already answered part of them, so you anticipated them. That's good. Something that you already mentioned. So you said that there was 31,000 people who participated on the platform, the online platform to the conference. And you considering that it's not enough, and as well, you mentioned, and that was one of the questions in the chat. You mentioned that national media, member states are not doing enough to advertise the conference. So we could do more. We could do better to make the process known. So what would you suggest as a way to increase the communication around that?
But the conference as such is also we have a special, as we call it in the parliament, services. So there are people who are experts on communication, and they are doing a lot. And on social media, you can also see, you are an example, of course, of a sort of initiative, of citizen initiative of just promoting also the conference, for which I'm grateful. And I also think that those to whom officially communication belongs as duty, which is in the European Parliament, in the European Commission. There are also, I think, at national level, there are also services who are in administration who are responsible for communicating to media. I don't know whether they do enough or they could do more. Probably you can always do more. But I think that on the top of that, it's up to us, to everybody who is participating in this conference. As I said before, right, that we should multiply the information. We should be those who are really communicating also to other people, who are organizing or inviting also people or neighbors or family or whoever to have those discussions, and to inform that there is such a debate, because it will come one day to an end. And then we will be. There will be a lot of people saying, "Oh, I didn't know, because if I knew, I would have just said that or that, right? Or I would be against something, or be in favor of unanimity, for example." And so that's why it's our duty, I think, to do more. And I still hope that this platform with 24 languages, that this platform will also grow, I mean, gradually. And now that we already have the first series of panels, citizens panels, the first sessions of the 4 panels behind us, I hope that this will also somehow lead to also mobilizing people to also go to the platform and write what we think, what we don't like, what we like. And it's also because, I think that for young people especially, this is an incredible opportunity to have a platform here, to have such a platform through which you can just start talking with other people who might be also interested in Europe, because we all have contacts, right? We all are in our bubbles and then on social media as well. But then there is something which is common to those who want to shape the future of Europe, because it will belong to them and it's their responsibility. And this is just a kind of different community of young people, for example, that cares, in addition to their own lives and the interest in the global world, that also care about Europe. So I think we should just try to
talk as much as possible to other
encourage.
people. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
So let's dive a bit into the content, into the discussion. Like you mentioned, there's always the process started in June, June or April. Launch was in April, but the first meeting was in June, and so we have been seen since already some citizen panel media meeting. And already with these first meetings that took place, do you see some big topics or trends that are emerging from this citizens panel, and also recommendation that you see already emerging so far?
Yeah, well, you know, we are the sort of principle of this conference is that we do not impose or we do not limit issues for discussion. That basically anybody coming into the panels or coming to the working group, which is another element of this structure, or just clicking in the platform, everybody is free to raise issues that are important for them. From the very beginning, it was clear that there are issues, because we already see it in Europe, that there are issues which are of particular interest for citizens, but especially for the young people. Because I remember during the elections back in May, it was end of May, I think, 2019, where during the elections we had the sort of spike in climate strikes on European streets. And I remember in Warsaw meeting with young students of the high school and just who were on the strike, and we were talking during the electoral campaign. The climate was everywhere. I mean, it just whatever. When I looked later on the reports from the elections, it was clear that there were the same issues which were discussed everywhere without being imposed by candidates for members of European Parliament, but they were just coming from the bottom up. And there was certainly climate and environment and the quality of air. I remember in Poland, it's just, every year because of the quality of air, the small city of 40,000 people is dying, is disappearing from the planet. So I think and those issues have been brought, of course, to the panels and to the conference, and one of the panelists exactly also on those issues. So I think that it's very clear that especially the citizens, but even more, because I think there is around 1/3 probably of members of panels who can be called young people, that they are concerned with a lot of things, and especially with the earth that is in danger, or also the survival of human race, which is, I think, a question now as well. And they are also, what is nice in those panels is that we are already accustomed, my generation, or those sort of mature politicians, that things take time, that to make a decision in Europe, you need some time because there are procedures. And the worst thing is, of course, that you have to find a compromise or agreement among 27 member states or among 8 political groups in the European Parliament. And young people do not understand this kind of slow, deliberative approach, and they are less patient, I think, and they would like to. They bring ideas just that they expect to be immediately having effect, and so this is for the young people. Also, I think also the exercise in kind of raising the awareness how political processes look like, how it is, where you have to understand that there are other people who have different views. You have to see that you cannot just say that, of course, we do what I like, because you have to, you need also the other person to decide with you that this is your common priority. So I think it's also an exercise in
democracy
kind of making,
in general, yeah.
Absolutely. And this is, I think, if I could just say one more thing now, which I think is important, that we all focus on worrying about the end of the conference, which I hope will be different than we think today. But I see a huge value added in the process itself. And not only that we are talking about Europe with everybody, but there is also this process of educating, of teaching what democracy is. And this is, I think, hugely important. important issue. So climate just was already, I think, a common issue in Europe some years ago, but it's now also extremely important. So I think there are big things that come to the discussion, but there are also small things. I think in those some of those panels, for example, the young guys discuss mobility, discuss this sort of recycling, discuss this digital citizenship, how you can just facilitate this. Discuss also the federal Europe all of a sudden, or they also discuss the issue of unanimity in decision making because somebody brings it. In the panels we have, because these are professional panels, so we also have experts who are chosen, should be chosen by the panel itself, who are helping to explain what is the reality, because of course not everybody has such a knowledge of how Europe functions and what is already done, what is yet just to be done. So there are experts who are responding to the questions, clarifying things. Sometimes I think that it's a very difficult role of an expert, because even being an expert, you have your views, and they are not allowed to have their views. They cannot try to convince the members of panel to some solutions. They can only provide the information, and the decision, looking for a decision, for a compromise, for a solution is up to the panelists. And panels have the sort of titles in the sense of the scope of interest, but then we could see that panelists don't care about it, and then they are bringing issues they just want to bring. Absolutely, because they want to talk and they want to see what they can do, for example, to have less waste when it comes to food in rich countries, for example. And this is, for example, an initiative that can be just, I think, European initiative. And with the involvement of people, of young people, I think they can do it. Also, climate, you can do a lot at your own level. So we can have networks or initiatives of people just connecting with each other and sharing best practice and doing things that make people aware at very low level, or that what they do every day is exactly bad for climate. And they are not aware, because people think, oh, there are big things to do, and this is just Brussels, and this is maybe capital government that they have to do it, and it's not us, not our life. So also this quality of life issue, I think, was also in one of the panels an important issue. So I think that, young people also talked about multilingualism, which was always my obsession, because I always thought that if we dedicated, 5% of European budget every year for teaching young guys, just those small kids of 4 or 5 years, starting to teach them 4 languages, then we could have a really Europe that would be communicating with more easily, because we know from experience of countries like here where we are, like Belgium, Netherlands, or Luxembourg, and that you can, Switzerland, that you can learn several languages if you start early, and if you can. That would be beautiful, but somehow we never managed to convince ourselves that we should this could be a European value, I think, if we could spend part of the budget on those issues. So but citizens, the people in the panels talk about this, and they talk about citizenship, what is citizenship of Europe, about the quality of life, well-being, and so a lot of things which come, I think, from just from life and from experience.
They vent about, not venting is probably not the right word, but they talk about their life experience, how they think Europe might relate into it, etc., etc. Which leads me a bit to my next question. So of course, when they share their ideas, they share their feelings about Europe, what it should do or not. It must be translated into recommendation, and at the end the conference will have to come up with recommendations. And do you think that, what should be the status of these recommendations? Should it be binding for the institution? Should they just be like a basis for discussion for the Parliament, the Commission, and the Council? How should it work? Because one of the arguments that we heard against, so to say, the conference is that it came from the member state. We're saying, oh, be careful, because if you promise to citizens that whatever they say will turn into policy, you will create frustration because in the end it won't be the case.
Yeah, well, of course, if what I said is that we just have some factors which make European decision making a painful and long-lasting process, and this is because of exactly of democracy. This is because we have to consult every single 27. And this is because we still have here and there unanimity, which allows our member states to block the whole important processes we have. I mean, what is important for young people, for example, I don't know if they remember when we wanted half a year ago to impose sanctions on Belarus. All of a sudden, one of the smallest member states in the European Union just blocked it, because sanctions are decided by unanimity or consensus, but you cannot have anybody against. Also in budget, multi-annual budget, when we had discussions more than a year ago in summer, in July 2020, we also couldn't move forward quickly because there were two member states who were just unhappy with rule of law, a provision that was kind of conditionality incorporated into the whole legal framework of the budget, multi-annual budget, and the new Recovery and Resilience Fund. So we have here and there this unanimity that is blocking. So that's also a factor behind which you can find, for example, examples of directives like on patent, for example, that lasted the discussions for 20 years because somebody was blocking. So that's the beauty of Europe as well. And that's why we can also discuss those institutional things and the way we make decisions in Europe during this conference. But the frustration could come also from the fact that even if some ideas will make it to the end, to the last recommendation, they will be taken as potentially also legislative proposals, that it will take later on a lot of time, because we will have to go through all those procedures that are making European decision-making a very lengthy process. So it's just, of course, there is this risk that people will be unhappy. But what is in this context, recommendations and what will survive to the end is important, is that we agreed, actually, Parliament was insisting actually that we don't put any filters at the beginning, so that everything that is appearing in the discussion, that is brought into the discussion, has to go through those joint bodies, the panels, the working groups, then to the plenary, to have discussion, eventually to vote or to make decisions together, so that nobody feels that, okay, I had such a good idea at the beginning of the whole process, or I put it on the platform, but then they ignored me, or we should do everything to avoid this kind of early filters in the process and avoid such situations, so that we can really have joint decisions, because in the plenary we will have representatives also of the society, of civil society, of citizens, and of the panels and of the working groups. So we will be voting and having the report, and everybody will have to be relatively happy and supportive of the final recommendations and report. And then depending on recommendation, we can have also a recommendation that will pass the whole process to change the treaty. And
that's a big topic.
This shouldn't be a taboo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we know it's a taboo. You can't even talk about it in Europe, but it's changing a bit. But we cannot assume that we are aiming at the treaty change, but we cannot exclude that after so many years, after the Lisbon Treaty and the totally changed world around us, it wouldn't be a surprise that we could have a treaty change. For example, to include also some new ideas about the decision-making process, right? So if we find a majority in the conference of people wanting to get rid of the unanimity in some areas, for example, the sanctions that I mentioned, or this multi-annual budget or taxation, there are very few, but still there are few special also on electoral law, for example, for European Parliament, we also need unanimity and ratification by all parliaments, and that's blocking. You can block forever changes to electoral law. So we just have to really be open and not just ignore some ideas, but just discuss them and see what we can do. maybe there would be also, there was my obsession at the beginning, then I just stopped thinking of it, but I think that we could have at the end some ideas about how to really make out of this process something permanent. Not I don't want to say that we should have a permanent conference on the future of Europe, but like we have in Ireland, there are a lot of examples of those panels and citizens panels, how they led finally to the change of constitution in Ireland. So we can also think of some formula for that would allow us to have permanently the representatives of citizens.
The constitutional process. Actually, that was my next question, and you already hinted about it a bit earlier, saying that we mentioned, it's the first time that the EU is doing something like that. It's already the mere process itself is interesting from a democratic point of view, because it's a first time. It allows people to get involved, and like we mentioned, the conference will have an end spring 2022. But you know that the whole concept of the democratic deficit of the EU is a big debate out there. Do you think that the conference is one tool, one way to maybe begin to answer that concern, to solve that idea of a democratic deficit, and how could it go further than that?
You know, I remember after Nice Treaty, which was in 2000, I think, where there was for the first time this deficit just announced that we still have democratic deficit, and we have to have the convention, and we have to have the constitution, and we have to just continue with those changes that would reduce the democratic deficit. And we are talking all the time about democratic deficit, and we are having the discussion whether Europe is a democracy or not. And if you can imagine that a body that is consists of 27 democratic states is not a democratic body, that I think is just something which I cannot accept. But of course, we have to make European institutions just working in a way that would respect the democratic principles, and would make also people feeling that they are somehow participating directly or indirectly in shaping the decisions, and they are listened to. So I think, and that the rule of law and those other important issues that are part of the democracy. But I think Europe is a democracy, it's a very sui generis, very special democracy, but the whole process of this conference is for me a democratic machinery that we have launched, and I hope that this will just not be a kind of fleeting element of European history, that this will be, that something will stay, and that not only in the sense that there will be more people that are interested in Europe and that care about Europe, but that maybe some form of bringing people into the decision-making process will finally be accepted by all of us, and I would be very happy if we could follow example of Ireland, or just find something. I don't know. Maybe young people will have some ideas, because it's all about them. How to make this democratic machinery of the European Conference on the Future of Europe really also, I mean, leave some impact.
Behind, something permanent.
Exactly.
I had a couple of questions on that in the chat. So from all the ideas that so far popped up in the citizen panel and the discussion, what is the one that you thought is the most interesting? What is the one? Are there ideas that you thought, oh, this one is good, I really like it?
Well, I must say that it's probably too early, because we just had the first wave of, because panels are certainly very interesting. And I think that we should really focus on watching what's going there, and also pick up ideas which are there, and also care about some of them, that they are not lost. And as I told you, there is a lot of things which are very specific, very, very special. I am very sort of proud of those who are in the panels, that they really understand the big challenges for Europe that require changes to the way we all live. I mean, and that's why I think this environmental issues, this biodiversity, the climate, this is something which I'm extremely happy that it stays there and survives there. And I hope that this will also lead to changes, not only in big legal acts and big emission schemes and all those things, but that it will also have impact on the way we live. And because I think that's where the whole thing starts. And as long as people are not aware of the impact of their own local decisions and local behavior on the global thing and on European level thing, then I think it's bad. And then I think the conference is just providing this connection between what happens locally and what it really means, what is the link with European level of our function. So this doesn't come as a surprise, but everything that is around this survival of our planet, broadly understood, this is something which I'm extremely happy that it is there, and that's absolutely clear. And the second thing which I think also I was sort of very pleased is not the right word, because the issue is very sad actually, but really this human right issue regarding the minorities, regarding women, but regarding LGBT, and so everything that is related to human rights, but in this sort of broadly understood version, because we just think traditionally that human rights is something that we don't care about. In Europe, everybody does human rights, everybody's respecting, everybody has its rights, her rights or his rights. And only now I think we are gradually seeing in how many places in Europe human rights are actually violated. So I think this is that's very good that young people see it, that young people are sensitive to it, that they are bringing those issues also into the discussion. That's really, it's like, this gives me hope that certain things are not lost, and that even if we fail, because we might fail as politicians at this stage, but I think that this will not disappear as an issue that young people care about. But so that's also, I think, that's very important. And for example, I mentioned, I think before, that there was some discussions also on recycling, and yes. Because we think recycling means that there is in a city there is a firm that gives you those different colors of sacks, of bags, and you just, of trash cans or whatever, you have to put your trash there. And but recycling is of course much more than just disposing the waste. It's also creating less of it, right? So that's also the ideas that are brought by young people is just, they're much more revolutionary and going into something that we ineptly probably already by some legislations have introduced, like the plastic, right? The reduction of the use of plastic, but they have some additional ideas, and I was always thinking that I'm waiting actually, because I didn't hear it yet, that maybe somebody will propose that we can have a kind of youth movement dedicated to the reduction of this of the need for recycling because of the way we live. And it could be, I remember back in the 80s when I was going to ski in Austria, and I remember in a guest house when we didn't differentiate between the white bottle and green bottle, then immediately the lady, the owner, she was coming at night and saying that the green bottle should be in this can and the bin, and the white bottle should be there. And I learned about this, the importance of respecting the rules very early. And in Poland, we are starting very recently the recycling, but it's still this kind of passive recycling that we just have to recycle, but you don't think why you have just the whole bin every week and you would have half of it, right? And so that's why those ideas are also, I think, good. And then I think they also, there is, I am surprised a bit, because I think there were also some discussions, I don't know actually who provoked them, but also about the union as such, union institutions and union that is organized in a way that maybe is not just very sexy for the people, that maybe there could be some changes to the way the European Union functions that would just be more attractive also to people, and you wouldn't have to make those efforts to make people just be interested or understand how union works. So I hope that this will just be taken further, and there will be some ideas on how to also there are cultural issues. So it's basically, I don't think we will talk about my favorite ideas. Probably we can talk at the closer to the end. We'll see what will survive. Because at the beginning, maybe there are some ideas, but people are not really convinced themselves. They're just throwing things.
There's testing the waters. It goes a bit all over the place, and you have to wait a bit for things to get structured and to see what ideas actually go through and get traction. I completely understand that. We're talking. I promised that I would not talk about national politics, but given the context, I feel and the topic, I feel a bit obligated to. So we're talking right now about the future of Europe. But I mean, we saw what's happening has been happening in Poland over the last few days, last week. And do you think that in this context, the current Polish government is steering Poland, so your country, on a path where it could be possible they would not have a future in Europe because they would say, no, we don't want to respect the rules of Europe? How do you?
It's a very complex issue because there is the European dimension to this, of course, extremely important, and which looks very scary. But there is more to this because this is all about democracy in Poland and about the state structures and about the respect of constitution, and so it's broader, deeper, and the European dimension is just one of the aspects, but extremely important because to be in the European Union, you have to respect also rule of law and all the democratic principles, and especially the remembering that Europe is a legal construct, is a union of law, and if you so all the judges and all the courts are basically European judges and courts, no matter where they are, and there is the European Constitutional Tribunal that is the only one that has the right really to interpret the European law, and that has the right to issue rulings, and that's something that is extremely important to remember. And what is happening in my home country is just both things. So there is this general, I would say, departure from democracy and the destruction of the state and of the rule of law in Poland, and the violation of constitution. And on the top of that comes, of course, as European Union is in a way intervening, because European Union for us citizens is a guarantee that we will have the same rights as citizens in France or Luxembourg have. And all of a sudden we see that this is not the case, that this can be not the case. So we are seeing the intervention of European Court of Justice and the European Commission, and then, of course, the ruling, those who are ruling, the ruling party and the authorities in Poland, they are just rejecting the right of the European Court of Justice and European institutions to intervene in what is the duty of both the Commission, for example, who is obliged to ensure that the treaties are respected, and the European Court of Justice, who have all those, as the Supreme Court of the European Union, has all those rights and duties as well. So we are in an extremely difficult situation, and we know that you cannot just tell anybody, any member state, that you should leave, because it must have to. There is a special Article 50, as we know, that you have to notify the will of leaving. And there are lawyers or legal experts who believe that, as in the Article 50, you don't have any format for notification. Mrs. May, the Prime Minister of UK, she just wrote a letter to the President of the European Council. But if you decide that you are not bound by European law, some people say, well, it's notification of the will to leave, right? Because you don't want to be subject and you don't want to be bound by what is the fundamental principle of the European integration. If we didn't have the union of law, then we don't exist as European Union, because it's all based on the legal framework that we agree together to have it. And so the situation is very, very dramatic, I would say. Very fortunately, the citizens still more than 80% support the membership in the European Union. So I think it will be difficult. Also, the ruling guys are saying that they don't plan to leave the European Union. But if you take the country out, if you just
de facto,
of the treaties, then de facto you're not a member, right?
Yeah.
So it's so that's quite a complex issue, and just it's such a pity, because I've been, like many of my colleagues, we've been so strongly involved in preparing Poland for accession and fighting for it, and just it was the social cost. It was a lot of hundreds of legal acts to be changed also in Poland, and the difficult negotiations, and we did it, and we came with this tradition of solidarity and Poland's symbolic place on the European map, and then and reputation, and just being an important member state, and with all our hopes, and now we are just, it all sort of goes down, and because nobody says Polish government, everybody's saying Poland, and this is just something which I cannot stand, because it's
that's
not
why
really
the
Poland,
president, the
right?
government of Poland, not because I know that in Poland the majority of people are actually against a Pole exit, like you mentioned. So that's why I made the precision, the government, not Poland as a generality. But so we just discussed that your government is a bit critical of the way the EU is, and they don't want to be submitted to some of its rules. Do you see inside the Conference of Europe some people in the citizens panel who are critical of the EU and says, oh, actually, I don't like the way the EU currently works, it should change in one way or another?
Yeah. Well, I am also critical. I mean, they're all critical, but your perspective is we have to change it because we want a better union, right? We want a union that would be just creating conditions for a better quality of life for all the citizens, that would be also sort of globally will matter globally, and will be just also the source of a lot of good values for the rest of the world, or part of the world. And so we are all thinking how to make Europe better. That's why we have this conference. It's not only just to ask citizens, but to ask citizens concrete things, just to think how we can make Europe a better place to live. And I think this is absolutely obvious. But if you are critical about union and you want to destroy it, that's a very different thing. And then I say, well, we have probably people like this in the somewhere in the panels. I don't know. Nobody has yet. Just there are no rumors, no examples yet. But certainly there are people with different views, and there will be people that would see that we need more intervention, and in new areas like the COVID created this expectation that in the health areas EU should have more competences. For this probably we would need a treaty change. So we will see what will come out from those discussions. But there will be also people who will just say, like many of the Polish politicians, who will just say that let's go back to the union. There was a place, the union with single market, sort of very narrowly understood single market, and just go back many years. And they don't understand that single market has consequences. You cannot have a well-functioning single market if you don't have other areas of the integration also in place. So it's so there will be discussions, but I think what is also important to say that when you want to enter the and to use this multilingual platform, there is also a kind of declaration that you just have to sign, which is nothing, it's just you're signing, but there is a kind of commitment to European values. So that you can lie, of course, right? But it's also to show that there are certain values, and you have to ask yourself whether you're committed to those values, and then we are on equal footing discussing a better future, but we are having the same foundation. That's I think very important, and that's how union was sort of conceived, right? And that's when it was just emerging from the ashes of both wars, and so that's why it's important that we remain faithful to those values, because that's how it. That's why we could just build this foundation, and we could just have European Union. If we were from different, with different views and different values and different principles, we would never have integrated Europe. So it's a miracle which we just have to appreciate. And,
yes. Yeah, I mean, we went pretty far in barely more than 70 years. I don't think a lot of organization of countries could claim the same.
But, yeah.
I'm looking at the time. It's going to be around an hour, so I think we're reaching towards the end. So what I would propose is to give you the last word. So let you speak your mind to the audience. What would be the message you would like to give them before ending this interview?
What I think is exactly what I just said a minute ago, that the fact that we have Europe integrating and integrated largely is indeed a miracle. That we started it in 50s or end of 40s, where there was still there were ruins. Europe was in ruins, and we also had still people that remember the horrible millions of young people that lost their life in this Battle of Somme in France, and so we didn't want it. So certainly it's important to remember that thanks to Europe, we don't solve our conflicts just by going to the wars, to the battles, but we solve our problems, our disparities in our views and interests, and our egoisms by sitting around the same table, which is of course a big one, but we can still, I think it's not too big to talk. So that's important to remember when we are just ignoring, we are saying, oh, Europe, well, it is, but without Europe, we will also make it. No, we will not, because the history of Europe is indeed a history of a lot of very black, dark moments, and with horrible wars, which should never be back. And thanks to the European integration, we just had 70 years basically without major conflicts. And so just don't forget it, because the young generation maybe that does not remember the old times. I don't remember also the old times, but we just have to trust those who sort of started Europe, that it was important. And our task now is just all the generations that come and go, they have the same duty to care about Europe. But we also have the right, every generation has the right to ask themselves, what is Europe for? Why do I need Europe? And I think it's normal, we should ask this question. That allows us also to understand how important Europe is. Let's just use this opportunity which the conference is creating, that we can just discuss this with not only with our neighbor who speaks the same language and looks like us, but that you can discuss also this future of Europe, the importance of Europe with people who live 2,000 kilometers away from you, that look differently, that have different history, that have also different tradition and even culture different. But we have the same destiny, which is Europe. So I think that I would be extremely happy if young people really could make this conference really a successful one, so they could bring the vision of New Europe, that is the vision for their generation, that might be very different, but still I hope will be always faithful to the values on which we are founded. So that would be my probably last words.
Well, I can see that the chat very much agrees with your message, so congratulations. And chat, don't forget to thank Mrs. Hübner for taking the time to talk to us tonight, and also of course to go on the platform of the conference on the future of Europe and participate to the process, because the more the merrier. So we need you guys, go out there and speak. So thank you, Mrs. Hübner, for taking the time of being with us and answering our questions. chat. You can see our Twitter under the video feed, so don't forget to follow her on Twitter and all the other social media. We will start the debrief in a minute, and in the meantime, well, Mrs. Hübner, thank you again, and I wish you a good evening.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right, let me change up. So we are in the discussion phase. So, what did you think? Tell me all about it. Personally, of course, I really enjoyed the interview. Mrs. Hübner, I mean, I think Little Miss Derry was saying it in chat. Mrs. Hübner is someone who is very well respected in the European Parliament. So yeah, it was hard. I think she was speaking to people who were already convinced. Snow is saying it was surprisingly federalist for an EPP person. Well, actually, I mean, EPP people, don't forget. I mean, beyond the whole idea, right, left. The right is on the side where we have the far right. Far right is bad. They don't like the EU, so EPP probably doesn't like the EU. No, actually, the EPP is very much pro-European. Actually, it was one of the core pro-European groups, and I'm not surprised at all to see EPP people being very much pro-integration. Maybe they're not pro-federation, federal Europe. That's a different topic, but that's historically speaking at the core, and that's why we have the ECR today. That's why the Conservative, the Tories left the EPP, because the EPP at its core is pro-European, pro-integration. They want to go more. They want more Europe. They want to go further in Europe. So it's not I would not call it surprising at all. It's more when it's from the ECR. From the ECR, that's where you start to see Euroscepticism. People who don't like the direction of the EU, they don't like to see the Europe making more, etc., etc. But EPP. Like Ika was saying, EPP, SND, and Renew, and even the Greens, when you're talking about the principle of EU integrations, they are pretty much on the same line, on the general principle. It's only, I mean, that's one of the reasons, like for instance, why the Greens don't necessarily completely get along with the far left, because the far left is much more, at least some of them can be more. I don't want to say nationalism because it has a connotation, but they don't like they more for nation states and less for the EU, because they see it as a capitalistic construction, etc., etc. Yeah, of course. Then, as Snow is saying, you have the whole debate between integration and federalism. That's another level. That's another layer of European debates. But if we're talking about the core of it, which is, do we want EU integration or not? You have a baseline where EPP, SND, Renew, and Greens are all on the same line, and when you go to federalism, we saw it during all the interviews we did so far on the channel. Many MEPs are pro-federalist, and we didn't ask the question to Mrs. Hübner, but maybe she is as well. It's only when you talk about some particular nationality, like the French, for instance, are not necessarily among those we heard on the channel. The French MEPs were, generally speaking, those who were not the least keen on the federal Europe, because of the history of France, the political history, the political practices of French, etc. Yeah, German EPP would be federalist, probably. Danish socialist was federalist. So even to be honest, even myself, I was surprised to see that many MEPs being pro-federal union. But well, anyway, we're talking about something that is beyond the scope of the interview. I'm the minority. Yeah, exactly. I'm the minority. So you should be nice to me. You should respect my opinion. Because for those of you who are not aware of it, it's a private joke. I'm not a federalist, so that's always we're teasing each other. So yeah, interview was good. I really like it. I didn't get to ask that many questions, because she was developing her ideas, and it was very interesting, and to a good extent she was actually anticipating some of your questions and some of my questions. So I'll let her explain it, and that was making sense. So I had no reason to interrupt and to push forward. I hope you learned a few things and you found it interesting. So I'm looking at my trusty notebook to see what I noted there. I was actually quite surprised in a positive way, because she was quite straightforward in saying that it was not granted that the conference on I'm not going to say every time conference on the future of Europe, I'm going to say conference, that's it. She was pretty straightforward that it was not granted that the conference would be a success. She said, yeah, it could fail. The process could fail if we don't have enough people. She was pretty dissatisfied about the small number of people who participated. Actually, let me switch you to my browser up. Actually, I pulled up the website of the conference, so I will post the link in chat right now. That way you can go check it out for yourself. But you can see on screen there's a number of statistics. You see that there is barely more than 30,000 people. There have been more than 140,000 people participating in events, because it's not only the online platform. You also can organize like a lot of local events, and then which are part of the conference branding, but it's local thing, can happen in your town. So you can see that there are much more people that took part in the events, and then you saw that there were like 8,000 IDs that were put on the platform, with 14,000 comments, 43,000 endorsements, etc., etc. But overall, you could argue that it's a rather weak, not weak. I mean, it's a start, but it's not that much, that many people. Why are you feeling shamed, Ikaos? The point about the national media being directing that she was spot on. Yeah, and that's, I mean, the question of the national media, it's a constant. It's beyond the idea of the conference. It's in general, national media do not talk about the EU. It's not something that they do. So to an extent, it's deeper than that. There's a problem, and also then you have the problem of the governments that have an interest in not talking about Europe, unless when it's not working, or unless when they want to blame something on Europe. But beyond that, they're not talking about it. Yeah, and like Mjusderi is saying, if they talk about it, they talk about it in a negative way. There is a problem of national media not talking about Europe. So then you enter into the debate of the between the egg and the chicken. What comes first? Is it the media? There is no love of the EU because media don't talk about it, or is it because people don't have an interest in Europe that media don't talk about it? So I mean, it's a bit of the paradox. I would say that there would be, my own opinion would be that there is a responsibility of the media to cover properly Europe, and you see that developing a bit, at least as far as I can speak on French level. We can see a bit more media talking about it. Thanks for the subscription, Insol. So we can see a positive trend. It's small, it's not enough, not nearly enough, but there is a trend. Let me actually show you the event. So here you can see on all I'm showing, it's on the website of the conference. So you can see that all the events that are happening around Europe beyond the Insol is offering off. To snore. No, I'm almost vexed that you were not already right. I'm gonna take that personally. So yeah, you can see that there are events all around Europe happening, and except even in Budapest. Interesting, because I remember that Hungary initially didn't wanted to take part in the conference. They were being difficult. I mean, Orban being Orban, of course, but yeah. So you can see that it's much more than the mere online tool. Triple scare, yeah, exactly. I was thinking just now that maybe I should make the sound of notification a bit a bit more lighter, because otherwise, yeah, it can be scary. It can be surprising and startling as well. Great mix setup. I'm very glad. I was actually going to bring that up, because for those of you who didn't follow it on Discord, I had for about a year a noise problem on my computer. My computer was making the noise of a plane engine, basically, and so I had to have a very aggressive noise gate on my mic. So on a regular basis, you would have the end of my sentences being cut off because I was falling under the threshold of the noise gate. And finally, I solved that noise problem. So for starters, it's very surprising for me to have a silent computer now. And now that also means that I was able to tweak a bit the mix setup so that it's not cutting my sentences. So I'm quite happy that it works well, and that you enjoy it. So that's a little improvement, but a necessary one. What else can I tell you? So she talked about the role of the MEP, that they were in listening mode, but also to provide input, etc. Okay, we already talked about the point on the media. They don't talk about it. In terms of topics, of course, climate being actually me again put the website, because we can actually see the different topics. So if we go into climate, you can see normally all the ideas that were proposed. That in English, that would be more useful for you. Bear with me a second. Okay, so now we are having how do we see the thing? That's the event seal IDs. You can see that there's 1500 IDs on climate alone, so you can sort out. So you see people, you post your IDs, and then you describe it, and then you can have people endorse it, follow it, discuss it. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Miss Derry. I get lost a bit also on the website. I don't find it necessarily completely intuitive, and a bit slow. I have to admit too. So let's see which one is the most endorsed. Most endorsed, the just transition. Oh, okay. And so you can see that it's not only citizens that can participate. It can also be lobbies. So you can see that here you had a proposal for the European Trade Union Confederation that is making proposals on the just transition there. Here I think that it's asked to so there is an automatic translation thing, but I imagine that here it's to stop subsidies to fossil fuels, European railways, train, returnable food package, okay, recycled material, forest. So you can see like a whole bunch of things. And I think it was quite interesting when she said that, well, we're supposed to have topics for the discussion in the citizen panel, but people don't give a shit and actually talk about whatever they want. I mean, that's how it is. I mean, it was nice to say that, yeah, it was normal that you can't put a pre-filter on what people should and can discuss. Other ideas are a lot of Esperanto stuff. Yeah, indeed, there is there are indeed quite a few things on the Esperanto app. I mean, it's a bit of a desperate fight, but well, whatever float the boats. Curious about this multilingual platform she mentioned in the beginning. Well, technically, that's what she was speaking about, the multilingual platform. That's what she was talking about. But I saw as well in the other categories like projects for on languages. So actually, let's where could we put that topic? Either it's gonna be in education or European democracy. Let's try education. Are you sure there's something here for French? Well, actually, you know what? It's like French. Let's see what comes out. Let's see, what do we have? Any project on recording, protecting rare or dying language. So okay, so here we have the IDs. Okay, blah blah blah. So it's okay. It's mostly about pulling the the proposal in French. Oh, the person. Okay, this one is a very French thing because there is an international text about the protection of minorities and inside each member state, and France is not allowed constitutionally to sign and ratify this charter because that under the French constitution there is no recognition of ethnicity, so to say. So you can't. There is only the French. There is not the people from Brittany. There is not people from the Pays Basque. There's only the French. There's no people from Corsica. So it's a constitutional obstacle for to ratify the whole thing. So you have a lot of proposal about that. Okay, guarantee teaching French and German, but yeah, unfortunately, it's only putting forward the. Let me check. Can I filter by language? No, I cannot. I cannot. No. Scope. Global scope. Okay. Bit weird. Again, I don't find the website to be as intuitive as it could be. The UN as a project. Abolish QWERTY. Oh. The UN as a project? Really? Oh, okay. No, sorry. No, the UN doesn't have a project on QWERTY. No. Abolish German language in Germany. Okay, Chaos, you're quite offensive. Well, offensive. You're quite on the offensive tonight. On the preservation of language. Yeah, that makes more sense for the UN. That makes a bit more sense for the UN. Okay, we're going a bit off track there. What do I have on my nice little list of things? Oh, yeah, we talked a bit about the people being frustrated with the political process because, yeah, of course, you can make a recommendation, but like she mentioned, it's not necessary that the recommendation becomes law because then you have to build up consensus, compromises around it, and then the process takes time, especially at European level. But well, that's democracy. That's how it works. And however frustrating it can be, that's part of the job of MEPs that she mentioned was it's to explain why things are slow and why they should be slow sometimes. I mean, it's not because you have a recommendation that you have to follow it. Isn't it under the conference that there were too many MEP presidents? Oh yeah. There was a whole drama about the presidency thing. So okay. So you can see that, yeah, I put the fact sheet of the commission on the conference, and indeed there was definitely a battle of ego because initially there was the idea. So you can see like that's the joint presidency. Initially the idea was there should be a single president of the conference to make things clear. Except that then the council, the parliament, and the commission less so, but they were fighting because the parliament was saying, oh well, it should be us because we are the elected. We represent the citizens, so it should be us who are presiding something that is about citizens. The council was saying, oh well, but no, but the EU is based on treaties. We are the ones drafting the treaties. We are the in terms of importance, the most important institution. So that should be us who should be doing the thing. The commission saying, oh well, but we are the ones who are supposed to be like the more neutral one. So we should be the presiding the thing. So it was a bit of an ego trip there. So in the end, it was a first compromise to say, okay, in the end, it's going to be 3 presidents of the conference, so 1 per institution. And then we went into the composition of the executive board, which basically decides on the overall structure, like the day-to-day things. And he went even further. Like there's I don't even recall the number of president, vice president of the inside that executive thing. It was completely ridiculous and a bit shameful at the beginning because it was postponing the start of the conference because the debate about the conference on future of Europe has been around for quite some years now, and it was agreed that there should be something, and in the end, well, it was delayed because the EU institutions were fighting amongst themselves about who would have the nice title or not, who would be seen as important in the process. But well, that's politics for you. Not necessarily a nice part of politics, but well, that's politics. What else she mentioned? Oh yeah, of course, the importance of the conference, even as a democratic experience. Yeah, and indeed, that's we said that at multiple time in the interview that it's a first time, and to an extent, they explain why things are a bit weird, not necessarily works well, etc., etc., because it's the first time that the EU is doing something like that. I mean, for the matter, that's the first time that any international organization is doing something like that. Some member states are not doing things like that. France has had a similar exercise a couple of years ago. It was a complete mess. So yeah, that's messy, but that's how you start. You do things. You try it out, and at the end, well, you'll see what sticks, and you'll see how to improve the process, and maybe, if not making it permanent, because I'm not necessarily certain that it would be pertinent, relevant to make the conference a permanent thing, and it could create a debate on what use are MEPs if you have the citizens panel. But it is an opportunity to do something more to solve the idea of a democratic deficit. As a newbie viewer, can you make? Oh yeah, okay, of course you can feedback. Make the sharing interview screen larger and the interview avatar title smaller. Okay, let me. That's definitely something I could do. That's not an issue at all. Usually I tweak a bit, because actually it's not the full screen, because I tweak it a little bit. Because otherwise you can see like the rest of the screen and stuff. So I tweak it a bit, but point taken. I'll see what I can do to adjust the size of the screen and my avatar and stuff. So point taken. Actually, I'm gonna make a note of that, and I'm gonna blame it on Daniel. Daniel is the graphist. For it. So I'm gonna blame it all on him. To add to that, you want to see a picture of Mepassistant. Oh well, you're gonna have to wait a bit on this one. Although actually, depending on how things happen, you may have to my face at some point if things go well. And yeah, because I know I discussed that with some of you on Discord, but started a bit as a joke, but in the end I did like submit the projects or the channel as a to the Jean Monnet Prize to support integration. So we'll see in a month if they think what we do here is interesting or not. But yeah, who knows? Because what else do we have? Daniel. Well, Daniel, you've seen him. I think you've seen him already on stream. Yeah, he's been on stream already quite a couple of times. I want to be on the same standing as Verhofstadt. Well, if I wanted to be on the same level of Verhofstadt, I mean, you would only see my avatar. My avatar would be the entire screen, and beyond. You would just see the eyes, because it could not fit into the screen. Oh, I'm teasing, but like everyone, I do love a bit of a Verhofstadt drama. He's one of the great. Let's see. Teasing, but partly right. Yeah, I know. I mean, that's why. That's what makes the teasing good. Let's see what do we have in chat. Nothing else, so I can continue my rambling. What else do I have? Treaty change is, of course, one of the big debates that are going to come over, and according to me, one of the things that will determine the usefulness of the conference is whether after that we will have a process to change the treaties, because I'm 99.9% sure that in the end, the recommendation, what people are asking, a lot of things are things that are not in the EU competencies. So that would mean a treaty change. Council at the beginning of the process was dead against the idea that there would be a treaty change following the conference on the future of Europe, and the parliament pushing back, saying, what's the point of doing the conference if we from the get-go we tell them that, well, in the end they won't change anything about Europe, so they're just talking into empty space. So in the end, the compromise was to say that there would be a consideration, but not necessarily would lead to a treaty change. But it's gonna be a tricky conversation, because reopening the treaty is one thing, but then reopening treaties to do what? And then you open the whole can of worm, because once you open the treaties, well, everything is open. So where do you go from there? And you have to convince all member states to agree to the treaties, because treaties, for good reasons, rely on unanimity, because you can't impose the treaties on member states that do not want to be part of it. But that's going to be one of the make or break point of the constant future of Europe, how they deal with the question of the treaty changes, because they will not be able to dodge that, and that will be key in determining what comes next. And again, at the same time, I understand the point of the member state, because I mean, what do you change in that? Do you change it just because there was a recommendation, and you're not necessarily gonna like what changes come from the process? So and then you have to make the changes approved by the member state, but then also via referendums in whichever country choose or have to go through referendum. So a lot of governments are actually quite scared of what reopening the treaty would lead to, and I can't entirely blame them for that concern, because that's something to be taken into account. France never did another one after the constitution debacle. Yeah, and I understand it. I mean, I remember back in 2005. So they were when there was the referendum in France about the now dead treaty on the constitution for Europe, and France voted against. That was actually the first time I was not the first time I voted. I voted afterwards, but that's the first time I got interested in politics and participating into debate and into European debate. That's where I started to get interested in Europe. And I mean, I came out of this process saying I don't referendums as a democratic tool is garbage. I mean, the debate was shameful. I mean, people were debating on pretty much everything but the question. They were told people. I mean, people in France were talking about Turkey. They were talking about the Bolkenstein Directive. They were talking about the famous Plan B, etc., etc. So basically, it was anything but the content of the referendum, and that became a disaster. So I'm not exactly a fan of referendums, because, well, let's see, what do we have? Oh, backstories. Oh well, no, I have to delay a bit my my backstory, the lore. I can't give you everything right now, but who knows? Maybe I mean, to an extent, nobody gives a shit about my backstory, to be honest. Sweden had the referendum about whether to have the euro or not. I mean, the paper law. Yeah, I'm not going to do that paper law thing, because I'm afraid that people will be kind of disappointed. I don't think my backstory is that interesting. And now you don't have the euro in Sweden. Oh well. Well, technically, actually, I'm thinking, is it Sweden or Denmark that has an opt-out for euro? The euro. One of the two. I actually have a fun fact about that but yeah, Sweden does not. It's Denmark, exactly, because actually it's one of the fun facts that I have in the list. Actually, I'm gonna drop one because you've been nice. Up there you go. Because when the euro was first conceived, some countries didn't want it. Among them being Denmark and the UK, and they negotiated in the treaties that these countries should not have the euro. But all the other countries were committing to the idea that at some point in the future they would get the euro, and so new member states that joined Europe even if at the date of their entry in Europe they don't have the euro, by way of treaty they committed themselves to at some point enter the euro. And when Sweden made its referendum again whether or not to have the euro, and they said, well, we're not going to have the euro, we don't want the euro, in a way it was breaching its treaty obligations, because by treaty they are supposed to at some point in the future get the euro. And so by making a referendum to not to completely rule out the possibility of getting the euro, they are breaching the treaty because they don't have an opt-out. I mean, of course, it's not exactly that, but that's legally you could have an argument about that. What do we have? Is that regarding a new event? Okay, I think I missed the message. You try to avoid countries that you don't use the euro. Poland will be my first non-euro EU country. Okay, yeah. Also, chewing tobacco. Yeah, I mean the chewing tobacco. Yeah, actually, there's a fun story about that. So we had a few years ago a directive about tobacco products, cigarettes and stuff, and there was a big push from Sweden and Nordic state to have opt-outs or have disposition that would exempt what they call the snus. Probably I don't pronounce it well, but it's a chewing tobacco that is typical from Northern Europe. So exactly, raspberry. Which is like a big thing, and like the like snooze. Okay, snooze. Yeah, snooze. Okay, so snooze, which is a big thing in Nordic Europe, and so there was huge lobbying from the Nordic countries to keep the snooze as a possibility as a part of the tobacco directive thing. But well, that's another story. I'm really going off track tonight, but well, it's interesting conversation. What else do I have interesting? Well, of course, I mean, we made chat made fun of me about that. I could not resist about talking about the Polish events, especially since we're talking about the future of Europe. I thought it was, I mean, especially since she's a Polish MEP. She was the first Polish commissioner ever. I mean, if I'm not talking about it now, I'm never gonna talk about it. So I took a shot at this. You want to hear about the snus drama? Well, technically, it almost led to a commissioner losing his job because of allegation that he was involved in lobbying to authorize it, etc., etc. But well, yeah, I mean, like Snow is saying about Poland, that's pretty historic. Yeah, it's gonna be pretty. Yeah, Commissioner Dali, exactly. That's gonna be indeed pretty interesting. And next week, actually, the Prime Minister of Poland is gonna come to Strasbourg to explain himself about the Polish ruling. So I expect that he will not have a very nice time there. But well, he looked for the trouble, so you know. Let's see. I think it was Ikaros who underlined that she nicely not dodged but reframed my question on whether there were people critical of the EU. She said, yeah, there are people who were critical of the EU, but they want to improve it. So that I thought it was quite interesting. But I mean, she knows her job. You know, she part of her job is to bring positive spin to the things they are asked about. And I really liked her final remarks about Europe, the interest of Europe in general, the fact that well, he debunked the idea that if countries would be fine outside of Europe, and say, well, given the history of Europe, it's not necessary that countries would be necessarily better off without Europe or outside Europe. I mean, if you look at how things are going in Belarus, in Ukraine, etc., I would say that countries that are not part of the European Union don't necessarily have, apart from Norway. I think Norway, Switzerland might be the exceptions there, but I think that country of the East, they're not necessarily better off the EU. Isn't Europe the most violent continent historically? I could not say. I mean, I would tend to say yes, but I would imagine there's a bit of bias in there because European history is probably one of the better documented kind of thing compared to Africa, for instance. Asia, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But it's possible. I know that in average, the EU was European countries were at war with each other every 30 years or so, and that's one of the big things. Like the EU is created the longest peace period in recent history. We're number one. Greater success of the EU is making EU countries' economy so intertwined. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was the whole idea of the EU. You intertwine economy so that it becomes suicidal to start a war with another. It's completely that was one of the objectives, definitely, and they've been quite successful at it. Whatever you may think about the economy of the EU. What else do I have for you? I think I'm gonna stop here. I mean, we could stay there and talk for hours, but some of us do have to work tomorrow. Actually, I think all of us have to work tomorrow. So I think I'm gonna stop it here for tonight, unless there is a burning comment in chat that requires an answer from my part. Let's see. I don't see anything that requires another detour for 20 minutes. Do I have pets? No, I don't. I do love pets, but I don't have one. Another low tidbit. Snow, you need to pay for that. Ah, right. I was just going to say that. Alright, why am I always sweating? Okay, let's leave my character out of it, please. Actually, I don't know why Daniel came up with the sweat drop. I would have to ask him one day why he came up with that. I found it funny, so I said I went along with it, but I will need to ask him once. But anyway, I hope that you enjoyed the stream, the interview, and the discussion. We went quite off track there tonight, but that was interesting. As I'm gonna redrop the up it in English. Bim bam boom. Put again the link in chat so that you can have a look for yourself about the conference on the future of Europe. And for the rest of the week, we will see each other on Sunday for the news review at 6 in French and at 8 in English. So in the meantime, enjoy the end of the week, and I will see you hopefully on Sunday or at a later point. So have a good one, guys. Bye.